Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure. It's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker for tonight, Dr. Zhan Zhang, who is currently a visiting research scholar here with us at ISOR. Dr. Zhang holds an MA for Indian languages and literature from Beijing University and a PhD, very recent one from 2016, in Iranian studies at Harvard University. Before his coming to ISOR, he held the position of a research fellow at the Institute for Qualitative Social Science at Harvard. Dr. Zhang is one of the most promising young Chinese scholars studying the languages and the history of the various oasis cultures in the Tarim Basin. But first and foremost, he's the up-and-coming specialist on Khotanese, an Eastern Iranian language spoken between the 6th and 11th centuries in the oasis state of Khotan, about which you will hear much more in this talk today, situated in present-day Xinjiang in northwestern China. And if you were ever wondering with whom on this planet I could have a decent conversation in Khotanese, he is the person to turn to. Dr. Zhang's research focus is on Khotan during the Tang Dynasty, especially vis-a-vis the Tang and the Tibetan Empire. And just a few days ago, a lengthy and very rich article on the kings of Khotan during the Tang Dynasty appeared in the prestigious journal Bulletin of the Asia Institute, so congratulations on that as well. A particular substrand of his research is also the history of the Jewish community in this faraway kingdom on the road to China, for which there is truly tantalizing epistolary evidence. During his stay here at ISOR, he is preparing his first book for publication, and this will be a comprehensive new edition of secular documents from Khotan. And these documents will give voice to the local people in their own language from these secular documents from Khotan, from this oasis kingdom flanked by their imperial neighbors in China and in Tibet. And it will tell us much more about daily life in Khotan was shaped back then as it is now by aspects like bureaucracy, taxation, and other pleasant aspects of daily life. So today, Zhan Zhang will give us insights into this multifaceted and rich picture with his talk on the history of 8th century Khotan as seen from Khotanese documents. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Zhang.
Thanks for the very nice introduction. And before my talk, I would also like to express my sincere thanks for Levi Liang Foundation and ISOR for giving me this opportunity to stay here to study my documents and to communicate and interact with scholars from other fields. And I will mention why this is so important for me and for the entire field. So before the start of the talk, just a little note on my name. It's very confusing in the pinyin system. My name is Zhang Zhan, but if you know Persian, it's very similar. It's very easy. It's Zhang Zhan. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I will start this talk by a short episode from my early days. So in 2004, when I was studying Pahlavi with my teacher in China in a one-on-one class, someone knocked on the door, and a complete stranger for us, and he told my advisor saying, "Oh, are you Professor Duan studying Khotan? I have a bunch of manuscripts from my old house. Would you look at them?" And apparently one of them is this document. And this is in Judaeo-Persian. And what is Judaeo-Persian? It's Persian language written in Hebrew letters. For example, this word in Hebrew letter is Barodar, it's B-R-A-D-R. Barodar is Barodar. In English, brother. It's a cognate. It's an English cognate. It's a cognate of the English word brother. So this is script-wise is Hebrew, but language-wise is Persian. So at that time in China, no one near us knew both Persian and Hebrew. So my teacher decided to give me the task of publishing and deciphering this language. So I did what I can, and this brought me all the way from China to Boston and then here. So let's see. And from the very beginning of our study, we understood that Orestein took a very similar letter from Khotan, this one, but a much more damaged one compared to this one, right? But why did Stein go to Khotan for the first place? Let me start the story from the very beginning. So Khotan is an oasis in the Tarim Basin in Xinjiang in western China. Here is Khotan with two rivers combining as one, flowing to the north. So here is another map. There's Khotan. There's other oases along the rim of this big desert. So in the late 19th century, a British officer named Bauer accidentally found some manuscript, some Sanskrit manuscript in Chinese Turkestan or Xinjiang. These manuscripts turned out to be much older than the oldest manuscript known from India, about 1,000 years older. So this discovery triggered a massive match for manuscript hunt. Both the British and the Russians came to Xinjiang and instructed their agent in Xinjiang to look for ancient manuscripts as a byproduct of the so-called Great Game. And this is a French scholar who came to Xinjiang. He also found some ancient documents. This is in Kharoshti, a different kind of script. By the way, he died in Tibet when he went into a conflict with local people, very sadly. Sven Hedin, a very famous Swedish explorer, also came to Xinjiang and joined this match. But principally, there were only two players in this match. One is the Russian consular in Kashgar. His name is Petrovsky. This is one of the manuscripts that he collected. I will give you a heads up that all these pictures, I will mention them again. So I will show you something that you didn't notice later, okay? And the British manuscripts collected by the British agents were sent to Henle, an Indologist based in British India. So this is one of the first published Khotanese documents, though not known as so at that time. So you see, this is very fragmentary, very small. So although it's a very small number, but it represents the basic nature of the Khotanese documents. They are fragmentary. They cannot give us a panoramic view of the Khotanese society, but they do open a small window of the daily life of Khotanese people, and we will try to do our best to look into this window. So later on, he got some more complete ones. This looks nice. This is a seal of the British Library, the British Museum, actually. So there's a signature, a strange signature here. The British agents also found another unknown language called Tocharian, which is a very important Indo-European language found in Xinjiang. But that's another story. But strangely, they found this third unknown language in printed books. But this also aroused some suspicion of the authenticity of this manuscript. Actually, this suspicion prompted Orestein to mount his first expedition to Xinjiang to verify the origin of this so-called third unknown language manuscript. Okay, so after a long trip from Srinagar through Pamir, through Girgit, through Kilik Pass, Stein finally arrived in his base in Kashgar on July 29th, 1900. And from Kashgar, he went to Khotan in December. Once arrived in Khotan, Stein sent one of his local informants to do a preliminary excavation at Dandan Ulik, a site very deep into the desert, to see if it's worth excavating. And this is the manuscript that his informant, the local treasure hunter, took back from the site. And Stein decided, okay, this is authentic, and this is good enough for me to go into the desert and excavate it. So this, after a long journey, Stein took his workmen into the desert and found this site. So this is before the excavation. So he took away all the sand, and a little Buddhist shrine appeared. And he found some wooden boards and manuscripts and sutras around this shrine. Apparently, people left in a hurried way without being able to take away all these belongings. So these are the things that Stein found in Dandan Ulik. So these 5 manuscripts are Buddhist sutras, and this manuscript in a thinner handwriting is some secular documents. You can also see some strokes here. Actually, these are finger marks of a contract. And he also found Chinese manuscripts. So this is also a loan contract. Some manuscripts from a Chinese Buddhist temple. He also found wooden boards with paintings. Actually, this guy is pointing to the headdress of the princess, saying, you have some silkworm eggs in your headdress. So according to the legend, a Chinese princess was married to Khotan, and he was worried about her clothing because the technique of cloth production is very well protected by the Chinese government. So he smuggled some silk eggs. She smuggled some silk eggs and some mulberry tree seeds to Khotan and started this silk culture in Khotan, which is still very prosperous nowadays. Okay, more things that we don't quite understand. If you can understand who this guy is doing with this bird flying into his bow, you can write a very nice article. But I don't know what he's doing, like this strange horse, and there's a camel. Yeah. Okay, so after a week of excavation, Stein left Dandan Ulik and went to a site nearby. And after a long day's work, he came back to his tent. But to his surprise, some workmen that he had dismissed earlier in Dandan Ulik came back to his tent to present to him a very strange article. So this is the Judeo-Persian manuscripts. So this was not actually excavated by Stein himself, but presented to him later by some of his workmen. So this one was originally crumbled into a lump. So this is very nicely opened up. And after Dandan Ulik, Stein went back to Khotan, went back to the oasis, and went to Nia to excavate another earlier site. And this is Stein in Nia with his dog Dash. Actually, the conditions in the desert were so harsh that many of his dogs died in the desert, but he just bought another one and named it Dash. So we have many Dash. So this is Nia nowadays. This is a stupa. And in Nia, Stein found many documents written on wooden boards in Kharoshti script, which we have seen a moment ago. And I will mention this again later. So, when going back to Khotan, Stein found out that all the manuscript in the so-called third unknown language was actually fabricated by this illiterate Uyghur farmer, Islam Ahun. And Stein interviewed him and, on the condition that he will not be sued or tortured or anyway, or in a harm, will not be taken to harm. So So Islam, Ahun just confided to Stein how he did this and promised not to do this again. But he continued to provide forgeries to museums all over the world for the next 30 years. So after Stein, many other people also came to Khotan to do expedition, including 2 American explorers. And these, the manuscript that they found were still not fully edited, so I also plan to explore these 2 collections, one in Congress Library, the other in Yale. So all these people came to Khotan, and not all of them excavated in Khotan. Most of them just bought manuscripts, both authentic and fake. So I just want to mention Dunhuang. There's another very famous and important site to the east of Khotan where people found a library cave in which about 50,000 manuscripts were stored. This is Paul Pelliot, a very famous sinologist from France, posing for the picture. So I think he could make a very good director if he were born 100 years later. But anyway. So back to Khotanese texts. So all the Khotanese texts in respect to Rangra can be divided into 2 parts, the literary ones and the secular ones. Then the secular ones can be divided into those from Dunhuang and those from Khotan. And I will only talk about those from Khotan today. So all these manuscripts from Khotan have been published in translation, transcription, and in facsimile. There are 3 major collections: the Heading collection from Sweden, the Russian collection, and the British collection. The last edition came in 2002, so time is ripe to integrate all these manuscripts. So how to do this? So first of all, we need to regroup all these manuscripts according to their own inner logic, not according to the collections. Whether this is in the British Library or in St. Petersburg doesn't matter for us. So we need to put them back to their original circumstances, contexts. So according to a Japanese scholar, Yoshida Yutaka, all these manuscripts were divided into 5 archives with different provenance and date. And I just modified his grouping and made 6 archives. And we'll focus on archive 3 for the better part of today's talk. So on the map, we can see that all these archives were distributed into different places. Like archive 3 is from Dandan Ulik, archive 3 and archive 1 is from an area called Old Domoko, and archive 4 is from Mazar Tak. This is an old fort deep in the desert guarding this river. And we also have archive 5 from a temple called Khadalik. And I will now talk about, this is basically what I did in my dissertation. So I focused on archive 3 because I realized very late that I cannot do all of them in my dissertation. So archive 3 came from a period when Khotan was under Tibetan control. So you can see some Tibetan script in this Khotanese manuscript. Actually here, this is Tibetan. Yeah? So here, this is Khotanese, but here, this is Tibetan, noting the addressee of this letter. So who is going to receive these documents is specified in Tibetan. After grouping, we now need to separate documents from manuscripts because in one manuscript there may be multiple documents. So in this, for example, in this manuscripts, I divided them into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 documents. So each document is a patrol list. So on which day the following people are going to a patrol. So there, and then different date and a different day. So there are 6 lists of patrolmen. And on the back of this document, we have three documents. On the back of this manuscript, we have 3 documents. But look, the order of the writing is different because the scribe just received 2 orders from his superior, and he glued these 2 orders together to use the versal to write the list. But the versal is not enough for him to write all the list, so he turned over the paper again and writes from the other side of the paper. So this also gave us some idea how they recycle the paper. And after that, we will rearranging these documents according to their genre. In Archive 3, I discerned 6 different types. So the first one is communication, basically meaning orders, petitions, missives, and letters. This is basically ancient emails. You have some incoming emails, you have some forwarding emails, you have some replying emails. And then we have 17 vouchers of tax payment, which is very enjoyable, and 17 accounts of tax payments. And then we have 43 patrol rosters, which we have just seen, and then we have some other stuff. So let's look at these patrol rosters. There are 2 kinds of patrol rosters. One I call prospective. So this roster is before the patrol date. So these people are going to the patrol. And the second one is the retrospective ones. So these people actually went to the patrol. So you can see a very high level of control in Khotan. So these are prospective, so before the patrol, and these patrol rosters were copied again after the patrol to form a larger patrol document to record who actually went to the patrol. So we can see some correspondence. Note that the retrospective patrol lists were all written on the large documents for record keeping, but the prospective patrol were written on some small slips or some recycled paper because they are not intended to be kept for a long time. And if we put all these patrol documents together, some pattern appears. We have 24 patrols for an entire year with 2 patrols a month, and with some prospective, some retrospective. Now we don't have all of them, but we can make some connections. And a more pattern appear if I look more closely at the patrol roster. For example, among the 24 patrol rosters, 12 rosters from number 12 to number 23 actually consist of 3 alternating teams of patrolmen. Like even the order of the names are the same. We have the red team, the yellow team, and the blue team. I will use a lot of colors there in this talk, as you will find out. Okay, but I have not really worked out the other 12 rosters. So I think I need to use more powerful digital tools to do so. And next is to section each document. By sectioning, I mean, this is how the document look like. And this is the edition. So the edition represents the layout of this document. But it does not specify where does one sentence end. So I will make them into sentences and to erase the layout of the original document. In doing so, it's very easy to see some synoptic documents. For example, these 2 documents are very similar to each other. And by cutting them into just different sentences, you can see the correspondence between them. After that, I will try to, so this is my specialty. I'm an expert of reading something out of nothing. So, yeah, because I know the formula. If I know the formula, I can predict what's going to be there. For example, in orders, the order always begins with somebody, somebody, ta, pari. So somebody, ta, pari, right? And then it says somebody, somebody, vara, to be, right? Somebody, vara, to this guy. And then it says vanya, va, now something, something. You see, vanya, va. So I know an order will start with something, something, tapari. Mr. A orders that, bara, bara, vara. to Mr. B, now that something happened. Okay, how do I use this? How do I apply this? So this is a document from the heading collection called Heading 20. The beginning of this order is missing. So this is how Bailey, master in Khotanese studies, restored this document. But he didn't pay attention to the formula because, as you remember, we need vara va. So I did vara vanya va, right? So I did vara vanya va to restore this part. But if you have vara vanya va, a longer, we have 3 aksharas, 3 letters. We also need to have 4 letters here. So the beginning of the first line can also be better restored. Not only 1 letter is missing, actually a bunch is missing. But the last step is to check the reading of each document. But actually that involves a lot of staring at each document. And that's basically what I did during my doctoral studies. So this is still this one, heading 20. So what is this letter? So I don't know. Well, this is a very strange looking letter. Bailey reads Qi Tue, but actually this is Re-Tu. This is not Tue, but Re-Tu. So Qi Tue becomes Cir-Tu. Then Cir-Tu is something meaningful. It actually came from Chinese, 节度, meaning military commissioner. And the entire sentence suddenly makes sense. The entire sentence goes, now the military commissioner Blanc La Cher and other masters ordered thus. Remember, this is a Chinese title of a Tibetan officer. So this is a Khotan under Tibetan control, but still retaining some administrative traits of the Chinese government. Okay, what do they tell us? Let's look at an entire document to explore this. Still, the heading 20 that we have looked at. So we look at the beginning of heading 20. If you look at the entire document, you will notice that this is 2 parts. There are 2 parts documents. The one part is this, called heading 20A, and the second part, heading 20B. Let's see what it tells us. So this is a bit complicated because it's quote inside a quote inside a quote. If you can follow, I will use letters colors to indicate that. So on the 21st of this month, an order came from the gracious Lord, meaning the king of Khotan, to Spada Sudarjan. So this is Spada Sudarjan, the central figure of Archive 3, quoting the king of Khotan. So this is the word of the king of Khotan, telling him, now the military commissioner, this guy and other Tibetan masters orders thus. And then this is words from the Tibetan masters to the king of Khotan, saying, oh, another Tibetan officer gave you, meaning the Tibetan king, the king of Khotan, a document saying this is from the other Tibetan officer. Then the Chinese intend to lead an army of 2,000 to Khotan to you. But last night, a document sent by this same Tibetan officer from Kashgar came saying, the Huns have passed over somewhere in Kashgar and are now going to you. Who or the Huna or the Huns? We will talk about this later. But it did not say how many have passed or on which day they passed heading for us. So the Tibetans were very nervous. They felt threatened. So the king says, when you hear the order, transfer all men and cattle into the fort of Pema, and then set orders to every town. Those who have more cattle and those who have no cattle help one another so that they do not transfer them unloaded into the fort. Transfer the grain with you. So on the 20th day of this month. Okay. So. So this shouldn't be on the 20th. It should be on another date. So this order came to the Tibetan official. So he says, okay, to this guy, when you hear the order, transfer all men to the fort and transfer your grain. And if I come to you, if I find a single man left at your place, you will get severe punishment for wrongdoing on the 22nd day of this month. So he transferred this order just one day after he got the order from the king of Khotan. So it's quite an efficient system. We can also see the structure of the administrative system. So we have the king of Khotan here. He took order from the military commissioner, who is also based in Khotan. And Kashgar, and Tibetan officer in Kashgar reports to him, also reports to him. And he will transfer the order from above to a prefect of the Chira Six-Town prefecture. And he will further pass this order to his subordinate. And this is where we got that document. So this is the origin of the document. So we also figured out all the names of different levels of the administrative system. So we are in this level. So all the document came from this township level, coming from the prefecture. The reason we have some orders from the king is that the prefect copied the order of the king and forwarded like an email to his subordinate. So this is a very rare Chinese-Khotanese bilingual document. Apparently, they wrote the Chinese first with very flowery formula, and then added Khotanese translation interlinearly. And this says, so a camel rider came, reported that I heard the drum from the citadel at 5 to 7 a.m. in the morning. And I came here to report. And then the king was very nervous, and he just says, everybody, you should collect all the people and cattle into the fort. And basically, this is an order of evacuation. And he issued the order between 7 and 9 a.m. So it's within a few hours, he reacted to this alert. And this order was passed down to the prefecture level, and then the prefecture level wrote something on the back of the document and then passed it down to the township level. That's why we have this. Okay, this is the same thing. But the interesting thing is that from this level to this level, documents were conducted in Chinese, but lower down here, the documents were all in Khotanese. So this is how far the Chinese administrative system can go. We also figured out the names, the correspondency of different names of the places of Chinese, Khotanese, and Tibetan, and the site nowadays, and put it on a map. So this is Mazarta. This is not for our concern. All the Khotanese textual documents were from the so-called Six-Town prefecture, which consists of 6 towns. One is Dandan Ulik, the other is Balawas, the other is Mazar Tokhrach, and the other is Chira. But this unit closely resembles modern administrative units in China because it goes along a river. So the geography didn't change, so the administrative system just stick to the geography of the area. Okay, we also see other aspects of daily life from Archive 3, like taxes in money, in cloth, in grain, and also the villagers were required to provide cattle and corvée work, like canteen duty, patrol duty, and work on the dam. But I will not talk too much about this. We will go to Archive 2. So this is the archive from Dandan Ulik. If you remember, this is where Stein excavated. So this is an early, we have seen this, yeah, remember this signature? We have seen this before. So from this archive came, So, is there something? No. So, from this archive came manuscript from the British collection and the Russian collection. So we have to do a lot of jigsaw puzzles to put them together, which is it's very hard because the pictures are not in the same scale, and you have to read like this small thing. But this is done by my advisor, who is very good at reading something out of nothing. So I inherited that, I think. So this is the Judeo-Persian letter that we mentioned. Let's see I don't have time to talk too much about this one, but let's see the key historical information from this letter. You can see just from the first impression that these two letters were written by the same guy. The same layout, same handwriting, and even the same habit of writing, like curving downward a little bit and then going up. And the same thing is going on here. So by some more detailed comparison, I drew the conclusion that they were actually written by the same guy. But from this new letter, we have a very interesting sentence telling us something was going on there and then, saying, I have written the news of every city except for Kashgar. The news of Kashgar is this: they killed and enslaved all the Tibetans. So there's some conflicts going on in Kashgar. So what's going on? So we need to look at a big picture of Central Asia history from this period. This is true. I will just go for the map. So the Tang dynasty took Turfan in 640, and then took the entire Western territory, or Chinese Turkestan, in 658. But the Chinese were at first reluctant to station a lot of soldiers there because it's very expensive. But the Tibetan was on the rise. So there was a seesaw warfare between China and Tibet. And neither could keep this territory. But finally, in 692, Wu Zetian, the Chinese emperor, decided, okay, I had enough of this. I will station 30,000 soldiers in Chinese Turkestan, in Xinjiang, or Western territories. This was very effective. The Western territories stayed in Tang's hand for about 50 years. And Tang China also installed its administrative system into this area. And Tibetan was forced to go another way, to go to the Western Central Asia to compete with Tang. I just want to mention that this is very expensive. Silk Road is not a profitable enterprise. China had to pour in an incredible amount of cash in silk cloth for its soldiers. And the same is happening now. Like, you know what I mean if you've been to China these days. But in 755, An Lushan rebellion broke up. So a lot of soldiers coming to the capital. So the emperor recalled most of his troops from the Western territory back to hinterland China. So now the Tibetan has seized the opportunity and encroached upon Chinese territory from the eastern frontier. So you can see it step by step, it went westward. And at the same time, the Uyghurs became very powerful. The Uyghurs helped the Tang to quench the rebellion and became very, they said a lot of harsh terms on the cloth and horse trade on Tang and made a lot of money out there and was expanding towards the Western territories. So the new emperor, Dezong, in the 780s, were reluctant to cooperate with Uyghur because he had been humiliated in the Uyghur camp when he was young, when he was 19 years old. So he wanted to collaborate with Tibetan, but it didn't work. One of his counselors just told him that, I wish your majesty could make peace with the Uyghurs in the north, communicate with Yunnan in the south, and connect with the Arabs and the Indians in the west. If so, the Tibetans will ensnare themselves. So according to this grand strategy, China will contain Tibet by calling forces of the Arabs, the Indians, the Nanzhao people, and the Uyghurs. Actually, our Judeo-Persian letter bears witness to this great strategy. Actually, the Tibetans were, in all likelihood, were killed, were defeated by the Uyghurs coming from the east. So, in the end, the Uyghurs and the Tibetans just divided the western territories into half. The northern half belonged to the Uyghurs in blue, and the southern half belongs to the Tibet in red. So, but this is the historical background. So I will talk some specific things in the letter, some Sogdian elements. Sogdian are some Central Asian people from present-day Uzbekistan who were famed as traders along the Silk Road. In the Judeo-Persian letter, we also saw a lot of Sogdian elements. For example, Sogdian loanwords, Sogdian ordinal endings, Sogdian dating formula. This is too technical. I will not go into this. So the idea is we saw a lot of Sogdian influence and elements in the Judeo-Persian letter. Besides that, the Jews were mistaken as Sogdians. Actually, one in their interaction with the Khotanese, one of the Khotanese told his subordinate, saying, "Give the sheep of this Sogdian." So he mistook the Jewish merchant as a Sogdian. So what were the Sogdian doing in Khotan? We actually did see some Sogdian manuscripts and influences in Khotan. Let's look at them. We have some Sogdian documents found by Stein and Trinkler. And we also have some new documents from Khotan recently discovered. And we also have one line of Sogdian script in a Khotanese manuscript. And this is a Sogdian document buried in a Khotanese collection. So Sogdian is read from right to left, this way. And this is a very curious one. This is a newly discovered document in Khotanese, but the title is in Sogdian and bearing a seal made of mud. Actually, it says Sartpao. This is the famous word for the caravan leader in Sogdian. So we do know that there are Sogdians doing business in Khotan. And what kind of business were they doing? We saw this document before, right? Remember this signature? This is my recent discovery. So they may, like many rich people, they began to make money out of money after they became rich. So they were giving loans. For example, in this Khotanese document, the Khotanese says, "I took a loan for you from the Sogdian with interest. Now the Sogdian has come here. When you hear the order, bring here 9,000 coins with interest." So this is a very high number of coins. In all the documents dealing with Sogdian, we see these 9,000 or even 10, 20,000 coins. So it fits the stereotypical image of a rich Sogdian merchant. We also see a trading network reflected in the Judeo-Persian letter. For example, it says, "I sent 30 letters to you. I have written about all cities except for Kashgar," right? So he's reporting on the political situation of the entire region to his addressee. This immediately reminds us of the Sogdian ancient letter in which information of all cities in China were reported. And another map. So this is all in black are all place names mentioned in the Sogdian letters. So it's quite strange at first to encounter some Jews along the Silk Road, especially in Khotan this time. But if we enlarge the scope of our investigation, actually this is not so abrupt. For example, we have some Jewish-Persian inscriptions in Afghanistan dating from 752, 753. And we also have some Jewish-Persian signature in a copper plate from South India in the 9th century. And then we have a Hebrew prayer from Dunhuang dating from the 10th century. And finally, we have Jews in Kaifeng in China. So this is Jewish and Chinese manuscript. This is now in Cincinnati, the Hebrew Union. But I want to draw your attention to the fact that the Kaifeng Jews are actually Persian-speaking Jews, because in one of their Haggadah, they have instructions in Judaeo-Persian for the Hebrew text. So on the map, we can see that there's some converging trends of Jewish merchants coming to China from both land and sea. So actually, the Judeo-Persian letter in Khotan fills one of the missing links. Okay, this is an unpublished Judeo-Persian letter. So we know there were more than just two. There's still more. And I can read only one word from this document. This is fruchtum, I sold. So he's still a merchant. Yeah. Not only Jewish people, but also Khotan is not only influential for the Jewish people, but also influential for the Persians, because Persian-speaking Jews are also Persians. For example, Khotan was depicted as a famed source of musk by Hafiz. I will show off that I can read Persian. Kas na dide ast ze moshke Khotan va nofe chin anche man har sekh as bode sabo mibinam. So from the musk of Khotan and the musk sack of China, no one has seen what I see every dawn from the fresh breeze of the east. So basically saying Shiraz is much better than Khotan. So this is the tomb of Hafiz. Okay, so what have I learned since I joined ISO? Roger introduced me to Marina Rustov, who works on the Cairo Geniza, which is a collection of Jewish documents from Egypt. And she found out that the layout of a document can be very significant. For example, this Jewish document imitates closely the Arabic documents. So it made me think, am I missing some information after I just discard all these layouts information? So these are all the documents that I showed before. Do you see any similarities? Do you see some similarities here, 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 right? There's a big blank space in the first line. These are all letters. But why and where does this blank space come from? And I look at the Nia documents. And I saw, there's also a blank space here. So this is one of the links between the Nia document and the Khotanese documents. So actually, the Nia documents represent a very long tradition of Indian administrative convention. And I looked further and found more similarities. So this is a typical Nia document written on wood. So the two pieces of wood bind together and sealed by a mud. And we also have this in Khotanese. So this is a wooden box. We call this wooden box, or double wooden tablets. So on the outside, a summary of the contract was written, and then the box was sealed. If there's some quarrel coming up, they will break the seal and see what's inside the documents. Actually, this practice is very common across the ancient world, in Egypt, even in Assyria. This is a recently discovered wooden board in Khotanese, as you can see. But the interesting thing is there's an underlying text, a palimpsest text in this wooden board. And fortunately, we can read most of the titles of the Khotanese kings from this wooden board, which is very similar to the title of the king of Khotan in Karoshi from Nia. This is too many colors, I know, but the point is they correspond to each other. Only the white ones cannot be found correspondence in the Nia documents. So it means that more links exist in the Nia documents and the Khotanese documents, and this is one of the future works that I want to do. So future works, I will continue what I did in my dissertation for Archive 3, and I will investigate Nia and Khotan. And I also want to make a database of Khotanese documents in which people can just search like a contract or an order and can see all these documents. And I also want to integrate this small database with larger databases of ancient documents around the world. So a lot of work to do. That's it. Thank you for your attention.